Welcome, everybody. Today, I have the great pleasure of introducing you to one of my dear friends, Jason Kolevsky, known to his friends as JK. For over a decade now, JK has directed all his passion, energy, and learning toward human dynamics and leadership performance. He has worked with CEOs, business leaders, and teams across Australia, New Zealand, USA, and Canada to unlock their potential and create the shift they are seeking in their lives. JK's Signatures series workshop is entitled Powerful Beyond Measure. And today he will enlighten you around the introduction to the energy of money and how to reclaim your power as you grow to become the grandest version of yourself. JK's personal mantra is energy is everything. And we hope you enjoy our discussion as you get a taste of what that truly means. Welcome, JK.
Oh, thank you so much. That's awesome. Thanks very much, Sue. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, look, it actually is my pleasure. And before we even move on to any questions that I have for you, I would just like to share with the viewer that you have been such an inspiration to me for many years. I've been your bookkeeper for well over 10 years.
Yep.
And I've just seen your business grow from strength to strength. And you are one of my most favorite, may I say, clients.
Careful who's listening.
Because you do as you're told. Like, I tell all my clients that they have certain things they have to do in business. Financial structure and looking after your finances is so important. Money is king. Cash is king in business.
Yep.
Well, maybe not king, maybe queen. But when I share with you information that you need to do, and you need to do a strict regime of the things that I need to do for your bookkeeping, you are on top of everything. And you do it really well. And when I reprimand you and slap you on the hand, you go, oh, got it, Sue, I'm onto it, I'm going to change. And a lot of business owners aren't like that. And I just wanted to upfront just say to you, thank you for being so compliant. And that's probably one of your greatest strengths as well, is that you follow your own instructions.
Yeah, look, I mean, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if I don't give you good info, then I don't get good bookkeeping. So it works together. So I consider you part of my team. So I'll do anything I can to help you to help me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have 5 questions to ask you.
Okay.
The first question is, tell us a little bit about your background and how life led you to this particular path.
Yeah, okay. So April 2000, I actually got into financial planning, first of all. So I was actually working at a local RSL club in the gaming room, and I was just watching all these people just waste money on gambling. And I remember it was at 2:00 a.m., it was a late night shift, and I was a little bored. I was sitting there just with a notepad and a pen, and I thought, okay, if a person, stopped gambling, or they changed their money habits and started to do something productive, how much could $150 a week turn into? And I was scribbling all this stuff, and I thought, I wonder if there's a career in this. And lo and behold, I ended up in financial planning. So like I said, April 2000, I got into financial planning. By 2005, I decided to go out into business for myself. It was just, as you know, when you're in business for yourself, you want to control your own destiny. Perhaps you see the way people do things and you think, oh, I've got a different flavor, I've got a better way of doing things, or I've got ideas that I want to implement. And rather than create friction with those that are trying to lead their own business, I've decided to go out on my own with the business partner. That was in August 2005. I was around 28 years of age. And about 7 years later, our whole journey had sort of evolved. And as you would recall, 3 years in, so 2008, the GFC, the global financial crisis hit.
Yes.
A lot of things were changing, but we were very, very fortunate because we had implemented some unique strategies in the way that we work with our clients that meant that our business didn't suffer. But what it did, Sue, is it led me to start to spark interest in other ways of doing business. And whilst I really liked doing financial planning, I would say that I fell in love with business rather than financial planning. So a good and bad thing, to be honest, because at the time it was an exciting distraction. I'd look at strategies around business and I'd look at my branding and rebranding and all these things. I'd work so much on the business as opposed to in the business, which is quite often the flip, is what most business owners are guilty of. And throughout that journey, because I immersed into so many different things around, rebranding and packaging up our fees and services, how do you value yourself as an individual when you're providing a service, and all these different things, that I started to naturally attract people saying, can you help me with that stuff? And I'd initially get stuck because I think, well, hang on, I'm a financial planner. I'm not sure what you need from me. And in essence, what they wanted me to do was coach them. And I didn't have the framework to be able to coach people, but I was very passionate about wanting to help people to get unstuck in any way I could. So I'd be like, yeah, I'll help you with that. And initially I'd say, look, I'm not sure how this is going to work, but why don't we just start? And the biggest trigger for me, though, is there was two incidences. I had a local business coach, very, very kind person. We had a good relationship. And she just said to me one day, I just love the way your perspective is so different. You just have this knack for getting me to see things differently. Will you coach me for 12 months? And I just found that as a huge privilege. I mean, a business coach asking another coach to coach them was the greatest honor. And we went on an amazing journey. And the second thing was my very first client, a lady by the name of Melissa Archer, beautiful accountant, was running an accounting business. And we were actually talking about creating a referral relationship, believe it or not. It makes sense, financial planner, accountant. And same thing. One day she just turned around and said, look, JK, forget about this referral business. I just love having these powerful conversations with you. Can you work with me in some way? And Mel and I had an amazing journey together. I still consider her someone very dear to my heart. And and here I am 10 years later. I've coached people from different parts of the world, and I have people travel to come and see me. And even though it's been a decade, honestly, I get goosebumps even today if someone says, hey, I've got a referral for you. Can you come and have a chat to one of my clients? Or, someone calls me out of the blue and says, hey, listen, I've come across your stuff. I think you can help our business in some way, or our leadership team. And, I do what I call put the cotton gloves on. I treat them very, very specially. I do understand that the space that I work in is very privileged. People get to share their deepest, darkest secrets with me and what challenges them and what's holding them back. And here I am today talking to you. So that's a little bit about where I started and where I've come to be where I am today. And honestly, it's the greatest privilege to be able to coach another human being, because they need to be open and vulnerable for it to work.
Jason, I 100% agree with you. I love what you said about how much you fell in love with business. And a little bit about my story. I've been a bookkeeper for 25 years and in business for 25 years. But my heart in bookkeeping has waned. But the passion and the love for my clients and seeing them thrive in business and supporting them in business, that's what keeps me going.
Absolutely.
So I get where you're coming from with that, because being in business, it's a very unique and privileged situation to be in, and scary and exhilarating all at the same time. And to have someone...
Totally. In fact, for years I've been saying to people, if you truly want to work on yourself, find out all your blockages, just start a business. It'll all come to the surface. Sooner or later, all your fears, all your concerns, all your lacking in self-esteem or ego, whatever it is, it'll all come to the surface for you to work on.
That's true. That is so true. That's what's happened to me. Second question. You've worked with such a diverse type of client and from different parts of the world. And I know that because I do your bookkeeping. So what insights have you gained, particularly around money? Because this particular video is for my beautiful students who are part of my synergy classes. And JK, I think I mentioned to you before that I they have a free financial literacy classes.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why I've got you on here to talk about the money. So if you can just, talk about that in relationship to money, if you can answer that question.
Yeah, very good question. So, which is interesting considering my background as a financial planner. You would think that I'd answer this very differently. So in financial planning, we're taught to understand different aspects of legislation, from tax to the superannuation laws, a little bit about estate planning and insurance and all these different things. And then you're taught to sort of, I guess, work out how do we make the most applicable strategy to a client to get them from A, where they are now, to B, where they want to be, whilst also protecting them in the same process. So it's very much about strategy, and it's very much about tools and calculations. However, that's not it. That plays a role, but only after. And what I realized is, Sue, is we could have two exact same clientele. Let's say we have, a couple in each case, and they've got X amount of dollars to invest, and so much income, and it's all very similar. In 10 years' time, that could be in completely different circumstances, irrespective of our strategy, because it's the mindset and attitude that needs to first play the role. So I believe, and through my experience, what I've learned, and as I said, going beyond financial planning and now coaching people, mindset and attitude play the biggest role, because that then determines, will you be disciplined with your strategy? Are you going to be focused on, growing, or are you going to be focused more on enjoying today? And look, they're all right depending on where you want to be in life, but really understanding that mindset and attitude applies more to money than any strategy you will apply. And I saw it firsthand. I talk a lot in my coaching, Sue, with people, that we have this formula wrong when we start to set ourselves goals. And sticking with the financial goals, considering that's what the topic of today's about, people will say, I want to have X dollars or X situation, in 12 months' time or in 5 years' time, or whatever the situation is. So they talk about what they want to have, and they become very focused on what they want to have. However, nothing changes, because they think, well, first I need to have, and when I have, then I can do. Whether that means I can do the things that give me more freedom or enjoyment, or go on more holidays. And then when I have the more money and I can do the things that I really want to do, then I will be happy or be relaxed or be more generous. But that formula is actually broken when you focus on have, do, be. And I say to people, let's flip that around. And it's not my work, but it's very known that whenever you start with, well, who do I need to be? What sort of mindset, attitude, behaviors do I need to be? If you want to be more generous, start by being more generous now. And then you say, well, if I'm being one of these people, what can I do? And if I'm being this person and I'm doing these sorts of things, then naturally I will have something different in the future. So it applies obviously to money, but any goals you want to set, I would encourage anyone to first ask themselves, forget about what the goal is, but who do you need to become? Who do you need to become first? And then if you were to become that person, what would you do different? And then if you did those things differently, then naturally you will end up having something different. Yeah. But if we keep doing what we've always done, we'll keep getting what we've always gotten. So what I've learned definitely about money is it's a relationship. Our relationship with money is critical, and then it becomes a mindset and an attitude if you really want to have something different.
Yeah, I can't believe that you just said that, because that's the first part of the course that I'm doing. It's brilliant. I'm actually going to use this video as the opening also to that first class, because it's about understanding your relationship with money. That's the meditation. So we have a meditation and we talk about, well, where are you in relation to your relationship with money? What was your first experience with money as a child? What was it like in your family home? Are you frightened of money? Have you had so much that you don't know what scarcity is all about? And the other lesson is about understanding contentment and being content just exactly where you are for the moment. Because I believe through my 25 years experience in the finance industry is that most people are not content. They strive for years and years in a job or a career or a business that they hate. Just like what you just said, to get the stuff that they need so that they can retire to be and do the things that they want to do all their life.
It's broken.
It's so broken. It is, and you've said it so beautifully, so beautifully. So for me, the B for me is contentment.
Yeah.
How can I be content when I look at my budget, or especially for the business? I go, how can I be content in this moment and find joy in this day?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and for me at the moment, it's going to the ocean if I can. Find the water, get into the water, and then just get all that nonsense out of your head, because that's where it is at the moment.
Yeah, totally. And contentment's a good word, or gratitude's often used in that regard too. And I say to people, imagine now, a friend of yours knocks on the door and says, I've got a gift for you. And you say, well, it's not my birthday, or it's not Christmas or anything. And they go, that's okay. I came across something and I just thought of you and I was so excited. And you can see them jumping at their bits just to give it to you. And then you open that present and you go, oh, okay, thank you. And you put it aside. How much joy will that person want to give you the next present? They probably would think, you know what? I thought they would have been a little bit more grateful for that, or excited, or at least, if they didn't like the gift, just excited that I gave them something. And I look at it the same in life. If you don't show gratitude or contentment for something that you receive and try and find it, then why would the universe give you anything even greater? Because you know what, you're probably going to fall on someone that's not grateful for that either. Yeah. So I'm fully in alignment with what you're saying, that you need to start with being content and happy and joyful and grateful for what you already have before you even think about going for more.
Oh, yes, totally. Perfect answer. Thank you. Thank you. Question number 3. Are there any specific activities you get people to do to help them shift their financial mindset? This is a good one.
Yes. So this is really left of field, and I did this once purely intuitively, and then it's become something that I always do whenever I come across someone that's stuck around money. So as I said, first and foremost, your mindset and your attitude needs to change before we look at any practical strategies. So I think both are very applicable, but you have to start with the mind in order to then have the outer world. So start with the inner towards the outer. So one thing that I do, and there's a few things, and I'll explain each of those, is I get people to write down what I call a de-money letter. And I sometimes change it and I say, look, let's not call it money, let's call it money. So it sounds a little bit French. It sounds exotic, and it puts people in a playful mindset. But remember what I said earlier, that our relationship with money is critical. And there's a huge alignment between our relationships with people, especially if there's someone close to us, and our relationship with money. And intuitively, I just came up with this thing, and I said to this person, I want you to write a letter to money, telling them how you've been in relationship with them, but as if it's a human, not a financial tool or anything. It's a human, but so let's call it money. And so you would say something like, let's imagine someone's got, a real, let's imagine I come across someone that is not very good with budgeting. They're very scarce. So when money's not around, they get very frantic and they get desperate and they try and do as much as they can, and they start promoting themselves and doing all those practical things, thinking, I need to have money first so I can be happy. So I would say, like, in that situation, let's write a letter to D. Monet, and it would go something like this. Dear Monet, I know that from time to time, I'm not the greatest at committing to our relationship. I'm not as disciplined when it comes to giving you the love and respect that you deserve. In other words, treating money the way it needs to be treated. And that when you're not around, I act desperate, I act fearful. I find myself in a situation where when you're not around, I clinch like as if everything matters before you come into my life. But at the same token, when you're there, I guess if I'm honest, I abuse you. I let you float around and I don't really treat you like you're much in my life, and I tend to abuse you. And whilst I want you around more, I really only want you there to get other things that I want in my life. And so I feel like I'm guilty of using you just to get more of what I want. And I think in my relationship with you, that's not the way I want it to be for the future. So then I say, let's turn that into where you want it to be. And then the story continues and we move into, I would want us to be comfortable and abundant with each other, where I trust that even when you're not around in those moments or those months where you seem to be a little bit less around, that I feel happy and okay, trusting that you will come around whenever I truly need you. And so we create this story around the relationship with money, and people get into this state where they're crying and they feel like they're genuinely talking to a human. And then I say to them, I bet you any money that you've actually had human relationships like that. And now it's also applicable with your money relationships. And the powerful thing is, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if you change it in one regard, it automatically starts to ripple in the other. And I find that people quite often end up in this powerful situation where their personal human relationships improve whilst their attitude around money improves. And this D-Money or this D-Money letter has become, honestly, one of the most exciting and profound tools that I get to do with people, because it's an exciting journey and it's different. And it was so powerful that I have a dear friend and a client in the US, and she's quite a big author, so she writes a lot as well. And she said, JK, I'm going to write a book one day, and I'm going to include my personal D-Money letter that you and I worked on in the book, because I found it that profound.
Wow.
So this D-Money is one tool.
I love that.
I'll explain the other two, and then you can share your thoughts. The other one is, quite often we do jump into scarcity around money because we're visual. If we see zero in a bank account, we get fearful. If we see $1,000, even if that $1,000 is your line of credit, so it's borrowed money, you just seem to subconsciously feel a sense of, I've got access to something. So I tell people to set up a separate bank account, and we do a bit of numerology around the number they've attracted on the bank account to understand their subconscious. So I'll work around the energy of numbers, and I go, it's interesting that your bank account came to this number, which represents this mindset, and we get to unpack some subconscious blockages, and we get to call this bank account a peace of mind account. And I say to them, just anytime you get a bit of extra money, just put some in there, and just over time watch it grow. But there's a few rules. When things get a little bit tough, you can't unlock that account. You've got to pretend like it doesn't exist. So put in there what you won't touch, because the power of having someone grow their peace of mind account and visually see, I've now got 25,000, or I've got 300,000 in this account, JK, that I've been building for 8 years, is absolutely profound. And it does give you a sense of peace of mind. And the last thing that I've been doing, and I play this game with myself, and it's called the Exponential Growth Account. So the Exponential Growth Account starts like this. You open up an account and you call it the Exponential Growth Account, and you put $1 in there. And every week you double it. So week one, you put $1, and you think, but where the hell am I going to get to with $1? And then the second week you put $2, and the week after that you put 4, and then 8, and then 16, and then 30. And before you know it, you get to a certain point, and I think it's after 12 weeks, you stop putting in weekly and you move to monthly, because the numbers after 12 weeks, I think it gets to like 8,000, and then it goes to 16,000, and then it goes. So you're going to need a month to do these things. And the key is not to sort of sit there and say, oh, I failed it because I only got to 8,000. I can't put another 8 in. The key is to challenge yourself and say, how far can I get? And what you end up doing is putting off some things that you don't really need, and your mindset starts to change, and you become channeled into this little competitive game that you have with yourself, where you just want to put the next week or the next month worth of challenge in. And, if you can get to like 16,000, and then, amazing if the next month you put 32 and then 64. If you did that for 12 months, as I said, 12 weeks of weekly, and then it goes monthly, ultimately your final figures in that last 12 months are billions. So it's, God knows, it's mind-blowingly powerful when you start to see those numbers start to escalate. And that's why it's called the exponential growth account, because it starts off looking like it's in linear, and then all of a sudden it just starts climbing on this massive curve. So they're the three things: the D1A letter, peace of mind account, and the exponential growth account.
Okay, there's 3 tools that you've just given us.
Yep.
Amazing. The last one sounds a bit like compound interest in a way.
In a way, yeah, but you're doing the compounding.
That's right, exactly.
And what you don't realize, Sue, is when you start really shifting your energy to try and get to that next week or that next month, challenge doubling your previous month, it changes your mindset around money. It's a game all of a sudden, and it's a tool, and it's a strategy, but you're also now saying, I'm not going to buy that, $300 dress that I wanted this week. I can wait till next month because the event's not for a couple of months, because I really want to get to my next week's target.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, look, I love it. I mean, you know how much trouble I have sometimes with, you probably don't know because you're pretty amazing, but most of my clients, it's very hard for them to put their 10% GST away. So, they get it from their clients, but they don't save it. And so for the last, how long has GST been in? Since 2000.
Yep.
So, 22 years of banging my head against the wall to say to people, you won't have any tax debt if you just follow the rules and you put this much away and this. And so that's the downside of being in business, though, too. And if I can speak to the business owners who are listening to or watching this video, it's just that they misunderstand about turnover and profit, wages and drawings. I mean, if we don't have a budget and understanding of our finances and having tools like you've just shared with us and implement them, we get into debt and we get into stress. And after 7 years, it just falls apart. So I'm speechless. I think what you just said is amazing, and I really hope people take heed for all those 3 lessons,
Oh, I do too. And, sometimes it's as simple as cutting up the credit card.
Yeah.
As I said, because we emotionally want to have access to money.
I get it.
That's not our money. And
our money.
If you said to someone, would you feel comfortable owing your next door neighbor that you see every day money? You'd go, oh, I'd rather just clear that debt and not have to think about it. And if you treat your credit card the same, cut it up and then purely go on a strategy of getting rid of it, you will find that you won't need it ever again. It's just something that we subconsciously learn to rely upon because it serves other people's needs, not ours. It serves the bank's needs.
Yeah. Well, that's my next course, which is shining moonlight on credit card debt.
Oh, wow. Awesome. You and I are too serendipitous today, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to always include the moon because that's my passion. That's my side hustle is the moon.
Yeah.
And when you shine sunlight on something, it's too harsh. It's like, and nobody wants to do anything because it's like you either want to bake in the sun, just relax, or it's too harsh. Whereas moonlight is softer. It reflects the sunlight. So it's very feminine, whereas sunlight is masculine and moonlight is feminine, and it's more gentle. And so when we look at our credit card debt with more kindness towards ourselves and looking at the inner child as to why we've spent so much money on our credit card debt, of which I have been guilty of in the past, but now I no longer have any debt. I have no debt at all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because over the last 20 years, I have been very strict and very strong. May I just say, caveat on that, my husband, who is an accountant, has been very strong and very strict in that. And I'm just one of the beneficiaries.
The yin and the yang.
Yes. And so, and he's like my financial advisor. So just as a little pause here, I'd just like to encourage my students, my viewers, to reach out to you, Jason. If they don't have somebody like my Jason, my husband, who is an accountant, they can get you as a Jason like you and come into their life and to help. And we'll get to your programs a little bit later, but I have 2 more questions to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, number 4.
Yep.
I'm interested to know, first of all, about the products is the powerful Beyond Measure program. There's other things you do, I know, which we'll get to later, but this one I really would love your take on now, while we're all emotionally charged with, these issues.
So, look, I'm a huge believer in serendipity. Everything happens for a reason, and that reason is always there to serve us. And I actually call them SMILES, an acronym, SMILE, SMILE. And a SMILE stands for a serendipitous moment in life's experiences.
Oh my goodness, is that yours?
Yeah, that's mine. So I call it a SMILE. And a SMILE is a serendipitous moment in life's experience where you're just doing something and you come across something serendipitously as you're just experiencing life. You weren't on that path, and this thing pops out on the side, and I call it a SMILE moment. And the serendipitous moment in life's experience for me was, I was reading a book called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
Oh my goodness.
And Marianne Williamson, and you've probably heard this quote.
I adore her.
Yeah, the passage that she wrote, I'm just getting massive shivers down the feminine energy of my body, feminine energy side of my body. And Marianne Williamson's passage, and quite often actually, this passage is quoted by others. In fact, Nelson Mandela quoted this passage in his inaugural speech, I think, and people actually think it's his, but it actually came from her work. And it starts off by saying, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And off it goes. And it's a powerful, powerful passage. And it really made me think that a lot of what we do in this space, I mean, as you said, I do executive coaching and I coach people and teams and leaders, and it's all about unblocking and helping them go to their next level. And quite often we think that it's because we're not good enough, or we feel that we're not good enough, that we can't get to that next level. But the truth is it's not. It's not that, our deepest fear is that we are inadequate. It's actually that our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Yeah. And this paradox starts to play on us that, what if I become something more? Will I be able to uphold that? Will I lose my friends? Our egoic part of our mind jumps in and says, you can't do that. This is familiar. Let's just stay where we are.
Yes.
And because of this grandeur that I believe we all have inside of us, I just keep coming back to that. And it's more about that we are powerful beyond measure. And what's allowed me to coach the way that I coach, I mean, I've been the recipient on the coaching end, and I think anyone that coaches should be coached as well. I've been on the recipient end many, many moons ago. And, the coach at the time just kept telling, oh, no, that's just because you feel you're not good enough. And and I just found myself in this spiral loop, and I'm thinking, okay, that's fine, but how do I get out of it? So when I got into coaching, then I flipped it and I said to myself, no, it's not about being inadequate. It's that we are powerful beyond measure. And I would seek every client, and still to this day, when a person starts to open their mouth, I start to seek what's their gem. What's their little shiny gem that perhaps has been chipped away, and dusted up and put aside? How can I get their gem? Pull it out, buff it up, present it back to them and say, this is you. And now go and be the most powerful version of yourself, or what I call the grandest version of yourself. So powerful beyond measure for me was looking at what are ways that we tend to give our power away. Because anytime we feel like something's not in our control, or we can't change it, or we don't have what we want so that we can be who we are, it's purely because we've given our power away. We've given our power to something or someone else, and it's not until we reclaim it that we can say, now I can change it. I say to people, you cannot change what you don't own. If you don't own your problems,
Yeah.
You can't change them. You've got to wait till someone else or something else changes.
Yeah.
If you're prepared to wait, then fine. Only difference is you tend to suffer. So one of the gurus that I work very closely with, not in a direct, but more of a transference relationship, he says, pain or a challenge is not your choice. You can't change what's happened. Suffering, on the other hand, is all you're doing. So, excuse me. So when we go through a challenging time, it's there to help us to grow, to learn something, to give us tools so we can become greater than where we are today. But the suffering component, it's just us and our egoic mind playing it over, worrying about stuff, thinking about stuff, wishing things would change for us instead of us being the creator. So that's where Powerful Beyond Measure come out, is I truly see every human with this grandeur already inside of them. In fact, I've started to coin this new term. For years, we say personal development is the sort of work that I do. And I went, you know what, I'm not developing anything. The people already exist in their grandness. I'm revealing them. So I call it now personal revealment, not personal development. Because I truly believe it's already inside of us. We've just got to rip those baggages apart and those old blockages and fears and concerns and doubts to realise we are powerful beyond measure. So that's
JK. You know what? That's a mixture of Buddha, Alan Watts, Marianne Williamson, Jesus Christ, and a few other wonderful gurus that are out there who are my personal favourites. And you've just sort of, you know, like creators do, moved it into this beautiful structure for people to access. Because not everybody reads Buddhist or Christ's teaching. Not everybody knows who Alan Watts is, and nobody probably would even know Marianne Williamson, because, you know, they're all these are people who wouldn't ever come. But you, Jason, can actually bring them all together into a structure, and I just think that's the most powerful thing I've ever heard.
Oh, wow!
Wonderful! I'm really excited. I've known you for 22 years, and I finally get it. What you're doing. It's because everything that you're saying, apart from the smile, that's amazing. That is amazing. Because there's nothing new under the sun, Jason. There's nothing new under the sun. It's just that there's so much noise, and there's so much awful noise out there, that to break through that noise, we have to have a container to go, look, here it is. And that's what that's that program. But it's powerful beyond measure. Now, that's a workshop. Okay, so how do we get onto this workshop?
Yeah, so at first it was only through people's invitations and referrals. So it was a direct thing where I'd work with an organisation. But over the next few months, I'm creating it into an online public program where anyone can go to Eventbrite, purchase themselves a ticket, and then sit through it. Yeah, and then sit through a 2.5-hour workshop and walk away with some massive insights, give a bit of personal transformation. So it'll become an online available tool. Where, as I said, but at the moment it's only directly offered to individuals and organisations. But yeah, over the next few months, that's the mission, is to make it so that others that aren't necessarily connected through their organisation can say, I'll buy a ticket to that and sit through a live, it's not recorded, it'll be live online workshop anywhere from their home.
I'm doing it. Do it quickly.
Right, I'll hold you to it.
Yeah, don't do it soon. Do it. I'm so excited.
Awesome. It'll be a pleasure to have you there.
I've got goosebumps. I have one more question before I let you go.
Yep, sure.
What are some common ways we tend to disempower ourselves? Oh, this is a good one, really, truly is, because I have so many ways I disempower myself. And what can we do about it?
Yeah, so this is a little sneak peek out of my Powerful Beyond Measure workshop. I say to people, anytime you feel disempowered, in other words, you feel out of control, you feel stuck, it's probably because you're blaming one of the 4 elements which I call pests. PESTs. And the PESTs are, the P stands for people. So you're probably blaming people. If only Joe Bloggs would pass me that thing or send me more referrals, my business would grow, or You know, if only my wife would be more disciplined with money.
Only my husband gave me more money.
What if my husband actually, whatever, you know? So we tend to blame people. And whenever you blame people, you will get stuck. So that's the P. The E in pests is events. So believe it or not, as I said, the global financial crisis was in 2008. There are still people blaming that event as to why their business or their personal situation isn't where they wanted it to be. And same, looking as you know, in the Newcastle region, we had the light rail infrastructure put in down the main corridor in our city. And there was a lot of businesses affected. But whenever we blame those events, we sit in a stuck point because we can't do anything about it. Like I said, if you don't own it, you can't change it.
Yes.
The S in pests is situations. Oh, it's just my family situation. I can't do what I want to do. Or, you know, the situation I'm in at the moment until I get a new job, or, you know, I start that business, or my business partner picks up his act. So it becomes a situation and a people issue. Then you get stuck. So once again, you're giving your power away to those things. And the T in pests is time. If only I had more time. I don't have enough time. Are the common things. As soon as you start blaming people, events, situations, and time, the pests, then you get stuck. Why? Because it's like I said before, if you don't own it, all you can do is wait until it changes for you. And you know what? It never really does. So how do we reclaim our power? So I call all of that below the line living. If you're living below the line, and don't get me wrong, I'm no, you know, master guru Buddhist on a mountain myself. So trust me, there's times where I go below the line and I'm getting cranky at that, whatever. So the key is to identify that you're below the line. And, you know, I won't get into it because I'll talk for another hour, but, you know, we call it the victim, persecutor, rescuer, drama.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Dr. Cartman does a really good job. So we incorporate some of that stuff in our workshop. But whenever you're below the line in the drama triangle, you will be blaming the pests. The key is to recognize, okay, I know why I feel angry, frustrated, blocked, stuck, because I must be blaming one of the pests. To step above the line into what I call the circle of O for ownership is where you see yourself as the creator and you ask yourself questions like, okay, I'm in this situation because I must need to learn something. What is it that I have created so that I could learn to become something more than what I am today? So it sort of ties all back into the be, do, have, and owning our stuff. To truly own it, you do have to take responsibility. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky, Sue, because when people say, don't worry, that was my responsibility, what they're really saying is that was my fault. And so they stop blaming other people and then they blame themselves. And when you blame yourself, it doesn't feel good anyway. It doesn't feel good blaming someone else, but it's also equally bad when you blame yourself. Because at some point you'll say, I'm sick of blaming myself, I now want to blame you. So I say to people, responsibility does not mean it's your fault. If you break the word up and say response, ability, it means you have an ability to have a response, which means you have choice.
Easy. Okay.
So when you say to yourself, if I'm going to step out of this and reclaim my power, the first thing I need to do is say, okay, I'm able to respond to this. I can't change what's happened, but I can do something to change the future. And therefore, you put yourself in the creator's position and you say, well, what can I create out of this circumstance? And I'll give you a very quick, I know I could talk, you know, I always say to people, honestly, if you need to interrupt me, because I could talk under wet cement once I get started. But I'll give you an example. So in our first lockdown here in Newcastle, which was, you know, in whatever it was, March, April 2020. In June, obviously we were still in lockdown and we had a long weekend. And so like all of us, we were in a position where we cannot change that. So I said to myself, how can I practice what I preach? So I said to my family, I said to the kids, we're going away for the weekend, for the long weekend. And they looked at me and said, Dad, we can't, like we're in lockdown. I said, but what does that really mean? I said, are we in lockdown up here or just have to be constrained to our house? I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to treat our home as a holiday home. So I said, we're going to pack our bags for a 3-day weekend. You get to choose any room in the house that you want. And I said, we're going to do fun things. We're going to be in the backyard. We're going to play adventure things through the house. We're going to treat this home as a holiday home for 3 days. We're not going to be doing normal cooking and cleaning. We'll get, takeaway sent to us, and we'll have popcorn in the lounge room, and we'll do all these fun things. So obviously, Linda and I, my wife and I, we lost our bedroom. The kids wanted mum and dad's room, so we've got 3 kids, so they sort of all snuggled in there, and I'm in one kid's bed, and Linda's in another kid's bed, but it became the most fun weekend. Why? Because we said, well, what is it that we can do with this space that we have, instead of looking at what we don't have and then feeling like we're the victims to a situation or an event that's happening at the moment. And we really just reclaimed our power and had the most phenomenal weekend. And the kids ended up requesting at some stage if we could do yes day, which meant that mum and dad had to say yes to everything that they requested. And all these things have just have created so much power. And the real crux of it, and this part really got me at the heart, was when we got out of lockdown, I actually said to the kids, how you guys feel? Like, I want to check in on your feelings. So my children are 13, 11 and 7. And I said to them, how do you feel? Like, how have you felt through this period? And they said, Dad, like, we haven't really felt like we've been in lockdown. We just feel like we've just been doing all these fun things in our home, and it gave us that choice. And for a tiny, I'm not going to draw a comparison to Nelson Mandela here, but for a tiny speck, I actually got what Nelson Mandela meant when he experienced being imprisoned, yet not allowing his mind to be imprisoned. He truly lived freedom in his mind, even though he was physically in lockdown or locked up in imprisonment, incarceration. So, I think we all get stuck when we want to blame the pests, and that's why they are pests. But when you recognise you're blaming a pest, just stop and ask yourself, okay, I can't change it, but what can I do to move forward and act as if I created it to learn something? And then all of a sudden you feel empowered because it's yours.
Oh, Jason, that's just amazing. This video is so needed. I've just gotten so much out of it, because I think meditation is one of my tools to help with my mindset, because I have a real bully ego in my head.
She's a toughie.
She's so tough. And what you've just said to me about changing the whole environment, like saying and flipping it on its head and going, well, let's do this. I mean, it makes so much sense. And I suppose that's what a lot of people, that's a tool that a lot of people don't have, because they don't know, because their mind is so egoic. And that's not a bad word. The ego is good in some ways, because it helps us to escape from fear, helps us not put our hand on the fire again, all those things. But like cortisol and adrenaline, if you keep those hormones at a high level, you're going to do some damage to your body. And if you keep your ego high without flipping it, like you just explained, kids are going to get neuroses. They're going to get stressed at the age of 8 and 13. They're going to have problems with school. I'm not a mother, so you've given me an insight into a family home, which I have no idea of. So it's been really quite profound for me to listen to that. So I have to go a little bit more gentler to my viewers and my listeners who have children, because it's just not a world that I'm in. But I can tell you that meditation is another tool that can get you there to flip it. Would you agree?
Yeah, look, I mean, I do meditative, and I'll call it energy work, which is more about techniques using breath and physical shifts through the guru that I've been exposed to. And we don't realise what's happening on the inside. But this guru, actually, my very first experiment, he said, just place your hands palm down on your thighs and just breathe. And just with your eyes closed, notice where your breath sort of stops. There's an upper point and there's a lower point. And he said, just sort of as you breathe with your palms down, just try and notice where those top points are, and you'll notice there's a point up and below. And he said, now flip your hands over and keep breathing, and the energy points shift. That's with something so subtle as just moving your hands like that. So there's so much, and look, it's beyond me. I just comply, follow the instructions that the gurus tell me, and I use these techniques to recalibrate my energies, to get myself into a state of mindset, and I do something of some sort 3 times a day. So to constantly recalibrate, and being very mindful of both who and what we consume is very important, because we're constantly processing, and our mind is like a sponge, and who we expose ourselves to, other people's beliefs and attitudes and mindsets, we can very quickly start to adopt them, because I believe more than any virus that's out there, or anything else, energy is the most contagious thing out there, and we can use energy in such a powerful way to infect people with such love and beauty and kindness and grandeur, so they can become the grandest version of themselves.
Perfect. In 2020, I wrote down on the census form, whatever that was, I think it's 2020, that I was an energist.
Energist.
Because I believe I love
entering that data. What the hell is this?
But when I was putting Jedi, I had to put energist, and my husband at the time said, "Why are you doing that?" Because for me, the spiritual path, which is all energy, some people believe in the unified field, which is the universe or Godhead, or Buddha or Christ or Muhammad, or all the different gurus of the ages. Whatever it is that you believe, I come from a neutral place with my teaching, and it's that it's energy. Energy is the source. And if I can share just one little brief personal vulnerable thing with you.
Please do.
And I don't know why I'm whispering.
It's only going to be between us.
Always just between us. When I was 30, I was part of the IVF program, in vitro fertilization program.
Yep.
I mentioned before, I don't have children. We tried, didn't succeed, moved through that. But one thing that I kept from my traumatic ordeal through IVF is my conversation with the biologist. And she said, "Sue, here's where the magic happens. It's Jason's sperm, your egg, they come together. What we don't know is when it does come together and it starts to divide, there is a spark of energy. And we don't really know where that comes from.
Wow.
It doesn't come from the mother, doesn't come from the father. It happens.
Like it's a combination.
So when I realized that, I'm getting goosebumps now, I realized that there is something beyond this veil that we can't see, but we can tap into. It's not even having faith. You just have to step into it. So when I talk about meditation, some people get frightened by that because they think it's about an Eastern religious type of chanting. And if I say prayer, some people get confused by that because they think it's about God and you've got a supplication. And some people call it breathing techniques, slowing the breath down, got nothing to do with any spiritual. So it doesn't really matter what you call it. All roads lead to the one ultimate conclusion, that energy, that source of energy, is in everything in this universe. And that's what I believe in. And you can take on somebody else's energy, just like you said, be it good or bad. You can prevent the energy from coming in by saying no, or invite it in, or you can take other people's opinions of you and agree with it. It's another form of energy. All these things that I've learned as well have its place. And so when we have those tools that you have shared with us today, we can take them into our lives. We can use the energy for our good and the good of others, whatever that is. So I am blown away by everything that you've shared with me today. And thank you. I just want to make sure I haven't got any more questions. Just a minute.
My absolute pleasure.
Because I'm just so confused now. I'm just not confused. I'm full. I'm so full.
You're immersed in the presence of what we're talking
That's
about.
it. I'm just being. I suppose what I'd like to do is how can people reach you? How about if I put up a post after this as well? As I post this, I can share people with. But just for now, for our people on our podcast who aren't actually watching the video, where can we find you?
Yeah, look, I mean, the easiest way is if they're connected to you in some way is to reach out to you and say, look, something resonated. I'd like to speak to JK just to see if there's something that he can support me with.
Yeah.
That's probably the first way. The other way through LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So
Yes.
they just go to Jason Kolevsky, and Kolevsky is Kolev for Victor, SKI, and they'll find me there. But I truly believe that if they're meant to find me, they'll find me no matter what. So,
I knew you were going to say that.
Look, I practice what I preach, and I truly believe, and that's why my personal mantra, as you sort of opened up at the beginning, is energy is everything. We are a vibration of energy. Quantum physics has defined that now. It's not an esoteric term anymore. It's science, that everything at the ultimate level is energetic. And, I meet people from all walks of life from all over the world that want me to either have what I call a recalibration session, which is just a one-off, help me to get unblocked, I just need some clarity, all the way through to what I call the consigliere service. And the consigliere, it's a bit of a funny thing. It's an Italian term where the mafia bosses, the head big boss always has a trusted advisor and a confidant that he can talk to about anything and everything just to get some guidance and clarity. And that person's called the consigliere. So, sometimes people get me for the consigliere, and we spend a long journey catching up once a month, twice a month, every month, and I just become their trusted advisor and confidant. All of those things, or the workshop that'll come out. When I do get that up and running, I'll forward it to you to send out to some of your connections.
No, please do.
Yeah. But yeah, as I said, energy is everything. So I truly believe if someone really wants to connect, they will find a way and will connect.
They will. Thank you so much. You are so loved by me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right back at you.
Thank you. Okay.
My pleasure.
And I'll be back in touch with you soon about your bass.
Thank you. Nice way to finish.
All right, my friend. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks, Sue.